Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Every Third Tuesday. It is Tuesday, August the 17th, and today we're going to do a mini deep dive on the extension of NoahFace, which we call NoahFace Go. And NoahFace Go is the mobile version of NoahFace. Jonathan is going to take us through some of the product features and do a mini demo on NoahFace Go. And then after that, I'm going to do a quick side-by-side analysis from our perspective on what's the difference between NoahFace Go and the UKG Ready mobile app. And in our research, we find these products are quite different and perform quite different features and functions. And what that means is that depending on what your business need is, there is a definite difference between the two products and why one might be better for your particular client situation. So anyway, we will get into that in a minute. So without further ado, Jonathan, take it away, please.
Sure. Let me share my screen here. Okay. So like Nick mentioned, NoahFace Go is essentially a supplemental application for NoahFace itself, okay? So you still have to have the iPad and all of that functionality, but you may run into some scenarios where you've got remote workers or mobile workers that are doing things like delivery drivers, things like that, where you're gonna need them to use the mobile app. And so we're gonna show you some of that functionality. We also have some customers that are in like a warehouse or a build scenario. They are at their workstation, so they clock in and out every day as they go in and out of the building with the NoahFace iPad, okay? But they may be needing to change what task and things like that they're working on throughout their day, and so the mobile solution makes more sense. They can do that from their location versus having to go back to the iPad and make that change. So there's a couple different features and functions of what it does. I'm going to run through the basics for you. So the first one I'm going to show you here is your standard clock in and clock out. Okay. So when I open the app is actually set up per user. Okay. So when you put the user into NoahFace through Ready through the sync and they get sent over their registration information, they will get a special link that will activate NoahFace. So I've skipped that piece because it's not very interesting for this purpose. But once we're activated and we're set up, at this point, I can clock into my item and you'll see that it's determining my location. So what it just did was it went and used the GPS on my cell phone and pulled down my location and then published that information back to NoahFace. So the other thing that we can do, and I'm going to show you on the back end what this looks like, but the other thing that we can do also with this is a new feature we've added is you can do breaks. So if somebody needs to take a lunch break, key thing here is with the breaks, if it's like a delivery driver, for example, when they go clock in at the warehouse, that's geo-fenced, but then they're going to be driving all over town. So you're not going to know where they're actually going to be at. Okay. So if they're going to take their lunch break, just like this scenario, let me click the button. There we are. We don't know where they're going to be. So there's no purpose in geofencing them for that piece. So they take their hour lunch break or whatever it happens to be. And then they come back from their break. They enter the button again. And there we go. We've completed our break. I continue doing whatever I'm doing for the day. And when I go back to the warehouse to drop off the van or the truck, then I can clock out. And at this point, it will geofence me. So that way you have people clocking in and out where they're supposed to, but when they're taking their breaks, the geofencing is essentially ignored in order for that to happen. So let's look at what's actually happening on the back end. Okay, so here's my entry event here, right? So I clocked in at 2:05, and then you can actually see that that's where I happen to be at in Chile. That's my physical location. You can see where it was that it picked me up at, okay? Same thing with my brakes, except at this point, it's not geofenced for the brakes, okay? But again, you'll see the same location. And then clocked out, again, that's going to be geofenced. So let me show you when I delete this site for Chile, that's going to remove this location for me. So essentially the geofencing is really simple. You pick your location, you specify how big it needs to be. So here you can actually see my house. You just drag the thing wherever you want it to go. So if you want to get it really narrowed down, I mean, you can really narrow it down. Okay. Anyways, you set that location. But in this scenario, I don't want it to work because I'm outside, I'm down the street, I'm running late and I'm trying to clock in so no one knows that I'm late for the day, okay? So the only location that I have available now that has geofencing is this Dallas location, and I've selected it to be this Whole Foods store. So that way it's specified. You gotta be in that general region of the actual Whole Foods store. We're not gonna allow you to clock in, okay? So we go back to the phone. You don't have to restart the app like I'm doing. It's just because I need to force the changes to happen immediately. That's why you'll see me do this a couple different times. That way it gets the new settings. So, all right, I'm gonna go and clock in now. And it's gonna tell me, hey, you're too far from the site, okay? So I no longer had Chile as an available site where I'm actually at, and so it's not gonna let me record any punches. Any questions about the clocking in, the clocking out, the breaks, the geofencing? Is that all kind of straightforward? What can I answer for you? Nope. Okay. So let me show you another option that you have with this, and that is task tracking. So I'm going to switch my configuration real quick.
And Jonathan, while you're doing this, would you at some stage just say, I know you had a conversation with one of our resellers this week, and they have a particular client who's got like literally dozens and dozens of tasks and jobs to track. Is that correct? And would you just be able to talk a little bit about how this will work well for that? Okay.
Yeah, sure. I'll cover that in just 1 second here.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Oops. If I can click the button correctly. There we are. Okay, so now we're in task tracking mode. So I show up to the site and I'm ready to start actually showing what I'm going to be doing. Okay, and this is sending the cost center codes from, cost center tree 1, let's say, whichever one you're going to use, over to Ready. So I'm going to say start task. It's then going to present me with the list of the cost center tree options. Okay, so let's say I'm going to start out in the deli today. I start my task. Again, it checks my location. I've disabled the geofencing for this one, but you can enable that also. But now it shows me working in the deli. There's a slight delay here. That's because it's sending all the data back. You're not going to experience this as an employee because you're going to click the button and then go to work. You're not going to be staring at your phone. So you can see it came back. At this point, let's say, okay, I'm finished with the deli. They need help in the bakery. So I'm going to switch my task. I'm going to go work in the bakery, start that task. It's going to again do the geofencing, and you can turn the GPS totally off if it doesn't matter to you whether or not they're there or not. We can completely disable that also, and I'll show you that in a second when we do the config. So there I am working in the bakery. It will update in just 1 second. There we are. Okay. So what Nick was talking about was there's a possible client that we have that essentially tracks shipments. So they want to be able to associate each employee's time working on a shipment. So it's kind of interesting. Not only are they putting together like the pallet or whatever that goes into the shipment or packing the boxes, they then also have the drivers that are taking that shipment out and delivering it to the customer. So they want to be able to account for every piece of time for one shipment, exactly how much employee time was spent on that. So in that scenario, I mean, imagine tracking all the shipments for Amazon. They're going to have a million cost center tree numbers. Okay. So we also have the ability, we can change the configuration for this, but we can have them where they can enter numbers, they can select from list, which is what I'm presenting here. You can also scan QR codes, barcodes, things like that. We already have customers doing that now. At their workstation, they get presented with build materials. They then scan in to the barcodes that they have for that piece, that particular job. They do the work and then they scan into the next one. And so they just keep rotating through and through. Okay. So this button here at the bottom, the end shift, when you're finished for the day, you can rename this to whatever you want. So whatever the customer likes to have this called, you can change that. But you're in your shift at that point, and that's over. So let me show you what that looks like in the events. Okay, so you can see there we are. I started my day, I'm working in the deli, and then I changed over to the bakery. So what this is actually doing on the back end is it's sending a clock out, like when I did this particular task here for the bakery, it sends a clock out for deli. So that way it closes that line of the timesheet. And then it does a new start entry for bakery, okay? And then when I clocked out for the day, then it puts the end piece on that same line for bakery. Okay, the user doesn't know that that's happening, but that's what's happening for you guys on the Ready side. Okay, any questions about the task tracking? Anything like that? Did that make sense? What I was saying about being able to scan with barcodes? We have a whole bunch of ways to input data. I was just showing you a list method, but there's various other options to do that. No questions? Okay, excellent. Last thing I want to show you is a new feature that we've added, and this also works on the iPad, but it's interesting from a mobile standpoint. So before, with our compliance items, let me show you what that was. As of right now, you have these check boxes and you can customize all the sentences, right? We also had the ability to do yes, no questions. You can customize all the sentences. You can force a yes, force a no. Just let them answer however they want. You had all sorts of options there, but now we can actually pass an image that's out on the website, that's out on the internet. That way, if you have specific requirements for them, and this one, it's a safety scenario. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? The image gets pulled down to the iPad or to the mobile device, and then presents them with that. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to clock in now, and I'm telling it to present the image that it's going to pull from the internet. So it goes and does that, and then it pulls down this image for site safety. Hey, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And you have to agree to that in order to clock in. When you do, again, I still have it grabbing the location, and it will sign me in at that point. So it's another form of compliance, but we've added it with the clock in, clock out feature. You didn't have that capability before. You had to use the compliance mode, and there were some restrictions with that. So our most functional piece is the clock in, clock out, and now you can add compliance to that through this image policy. Again, that just needs to be on the internet. It doesn't have to be, there's nothing magical for what that needs to be. So you just provide a URL in the configuration. So any questions on the web policy thing where it pulls the image? No. Okay. So let me show you what this looks like from a config standpoint. Nothing too crazy. So with the mobile and the breaks, there's going to be some differences than what you may be accustomed to. So you're going to change the platform to mobile. In this, I told it, hey, use breaks. And then we have this option, and this is something that you will care about. So this is the GPS section. So optional is not necessarily one that there's three that you would use. You would either completely disable it, which is none. You would require GPS coordinates to come through, or you would actually geofence it. Okay. So those are your three options that you're going to use most of the time. Optional just means if they have a GPS location, send it. If they don't, no problem. Mapped gets into some specific things with sites and collect a site, but require this, and it's not something you're going to use on a regular basis. But we do have some capabilities where we run into that with a client issue. So anyways, the three that you want is geofence, require, X location, or we don't take the punch. Required means we got to have a GPS signal or we don't take the punch. I don't care where you are. And then none means we just disable. We don't care what the GPS is. We don't even ask for the location. Okay. So those are your basic settings in there. Let me show you what the task tracking look like. So this is a simple setup here. Again, I've named the button. You can name it whatever you want. And then I'm telling it to do a dynamic lookup on cost center tree 2. Okay. And the last piece is the compliance image. This is pretty simple stuff. So you can see here in this highlighted section, I'm actually calling a URL from the internet to pull down that image for me. Okay. And then you can name the button whatever you want to call it. So real simple. As long as it's available on the internet and you can access it, then you can pull any of those images down. We've had a customer recently who's done some interesting things with that. So he has the client that he has had a group of people that were English speakers and Spanish speakers. And so he ended up building this out so that he could do multiple images for those user types. So for example, in this scenario, this was changed to English, and then this was changed to Spanish, and then the English one gets one image, and then the Spanish one gets another image. And that way they got the items that they needed in their specific language that they wanted. Any questions about that in config?
Jonathan, I've got a real quick question that, and I had it a while back, and I just wrote it down. We're just kind of waiting on the clocking in and out of this NoahFace Go. Will it accept punches if the user is out of their service range? Will there be an offline punch accepted, and how does that work?
Correct. So it still works offline. So I can't disconnect mine because you wouldn't be able to see this. But it will collect the punch, and then once they come back into service range, it will send it over. But they do need to have at least the app open. That way it's got the latest config. So what I mean by that is if they opened it, let's say I opened it this morning, and then you went and changed the config and I was out of service range that whole time, well, then they're not going to get whatever that new config is, right? Because they're not connected to the internet. But it will take that punch, and then when they come back and get into service range, then it will send that over. But you're not going to be changing these configs very often. I mean, it's a pretty random thing that would occur. So if you did if they set their config and they open the device on Monday, and then they go open it today on Tuesday, and they're not in a service area, it will still present everything like this and collect the punches.
Okay. Now, if they had the option, earlier we seen it was required to have a GPS location or would not accept the punch, would it override that or anything if that was selected?
I believe the device still has that information in it. That's a great question. I'm going to have to get you a proper answer, but I believe the config, when it pulls down, it's going to know of what the locations are. And so it wouldn't accept the punch because you're not in the correct location.
Okay.
But I will clarify that. I'm almost positive it has to, because otherwise it wouldn't be able to work offline.
All right, good enough. Thanks.
Okay. So this is the basics of what it does. It can do more than this. Again, we don't want to burn 4 hours of your day showing you every in and out of NoahFace. That would be a painful experience for all of us. So our biggest concern with you guys is tell us what the customer is wanting to do. We'll help you show you how to make the software do that. Okay. So you don't need to necessarily know everything under the sun about NoahFace. Just say, hey, customer wants to do X. We'll come up with a solution for you. What Nick's going to do now is cover some of the areas that I think is really helpful for you. There's some great spots of where NoahFace Go is 100% the right solution. And then there's some other areas you're like, okay, this doesn't do exactly what we want. Let's use the Ready app instead.
Okay, so thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, let's not talk about features and benefits. Let's understand what your client problem is. That's the way we like to work. Okay, here's some real basics reminders, which Jonathan covered a little bit, but let's just, number one, NoahFace Go is an extension of the NoahFace main platform. You cannot use NoahFace Go if you're not using the main NoahFace platform. So you need at least one iPad connected, and you need to obviously have that per device fee paid and the per user per month fees paid. But if your client wants to add one NoahFace Go or 23 NoahFace Goes, there's no issue and there's no charges for that extension of the base platform. The next thing is that while the NoahFace main platform is only on iPads, you can use both the iPhone and Android devices for NoahFace Go. So they're easy download. You can find it on the website, either at the App Store or at the Google Play thing. A reminder, when you set up NoahFace Go, you're using the security of the phone, and subsequently, NoahFace Go does not specifically use facial recognition. So if somebody on this call, like John, for instance, if his phone is open and NoahFace Go is open, he is able to use it, but with not using facial recognition from NoahFace Go. And so, in fact, his wife or his son or whatever could be using it if the app is open. And the last thing is that there is one NoahFace Go device per person. It's an individual use case. It's not a group product, which is what the iPad is. Okay, pretty clear?
Yes, sir.
I have, and we can share 5 or 6 charts of this with great detail about what are the really high-level differences between our kiosk or our iPad app versus our mobile app. But at a very high level, you can see here the differences between what the NoahFace main product will do versus what the mobile device will do. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of repetition, meaning there's a lot of similarities between the products, as you just saw, but there is some things that it won't do. Once again, let's get into the detail of that if you want to. The main thing I want to discuss for the next few minutes is not about NoahFace versus NoahFace Go. It was about UKG Ready's app versus the NoahFace Go app. They're both available in the App Store. They're both available on Android. They both do not charge you any additional fees above and beyond what you're already paying for the base service. So what are the key differences? So what we did is we took a bit of a test run of UKG Ready's app and tried to give our perspective on what are its features and benefits, what works, what doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera. So this is our humble opinion or assessment of the UKG Ready product. Firstly, as you can see, it does display those real-time clocking areas as they happen. By the way, when you open up the product, it looks exactly the same as the UKG Ready screen that you're used to on your computer. And in fact, it is not a native app. It was not specifically built to be an app. It really is just an extension of what you're used to seeing on your laptop or on your computer. And that in one way is really an advantage because it's very familiar. In a potentially disadvantage, maybe it's busy, maybe it's cluttered, maybe it's not easy to use, but you will decide that. You can do manual editing of timesheets. You can do direct entry of pay, extra pay like tips, and that will go straight into extra pay. And we are working on that with NoahFace Go at the moment, but right now that happens, it goes straight through. It does provide some broader non-clocking functionality, like, for instance, those deeper payroll issues like leave requests, vacation, your manager coming in and giving approval, manager functionality, and some other simple administration features. So just like UKG Ready, the product is a much deeper payroll solution for management, to supervisors, to looking at your leave and all that stuff. And NoahFace does not do that. That's exactly the same as their app versus our app. So in our humble opinion, the NoahFace Go product provides a superior user experience. It is a native app. It was built as an app, and it's so much faster than the UKG Ready. Just to get logged in and to move from screen to screen, it really is significantly faster. We have the ability to collect data, as Jonathan shows, at clock in, and we also have the ability to collect data at clock out that may not necessarily be passed on to or directly into UKG, such as comments and shift conditions and paid break and piecework and all that sort of stuff. Our geolocation features are very, very good. They work really, really well. And they work in conjunction with things like cost centers. So for instance, if you have set limits on a region for a specific cost center, those all sync together and work perfectly. And that's not something that is available on the Ready app. It also supports the clock-in policies. It knows what is going on between two devices. So as Jonathan mentioned, if you tend to clock in using the iPad in the morning, and then you're out in the field in the truck and you're clocking out or doing shifts or whatever, it does know what happened at the NoahFace main iPad and then what happened on the remote device. And then the big feature, big benefit, and this is, John, to your question a minute ago, is it will work offline, just like NoahFace works offline, and it will collect that. There's a lot of reviews online for the UKG Ready app, and they're both in the Android and also on the Apple sites. And a lot of them are very positive, and a lot of them are not very positive at all. I would just suggest that you read the reviews. And one thing that just makes me smile, I guess, is that apparently every time you turn on the UKG Ready app, it asks you to leave a review. And a lot of the one-star reviews say, you asked me so many times, now I'm leaving my review, I'll give you one thing. Okay. This is a bit of a site chart. And we just did it because in our experience, it does take you a long time to use and get going on the Ready app. And in our assessment, it takes at least 15 seconds to get you going. And I don't know what your business is, how many employees you have, how many times you use the app, but if you just pick a line on this product, it doesn't matter. Let's go to E, line E. So if it is in fact 15 seconds of lost productivity, and let's say that your employees are using the product on average 3 times a day, and you have 125 employees, you can see here that there is a significant number of lost hours per month in terms of productivity, and you can cost that out at whatever number you want. And then the frustration factor of using technology that doesn't work adds another level to it. So the bottom line is that other product takes longer, and it seems to be pretty frustrating. Okay, a really quick summary of everything. So where and when is UKG Ready Mobile the best option? In our opinion, if you're using it quite infrequently and you need to do deeper payroll activities, then the UKG Ready mobile app is a good solution. When is NoahFace Go the best option? If you're doing multiple clocking operations per day and you need to collect detailed costing information, we think that our product provides a better solution. So what does that mean in specifics? This is worth spending a minute on. This could mean that if you're working on one site or multiple sites where the internet is patchy or non-existent, the Go solution is a good solution. So if your business needs to pay customers different rates and different tasks for different work, and they want to record travel time and different functions and this and that, then NoahFace Go works really, really well. If your employees do need to record those unpaid breaks, that is useful. If, for instance, you're on charging for different jobs and different tasks with different pay rates and different sites, we think that Go works really well in that scenario. And then for those companies that want to look where their clients are spending, also where their staff are spending time and what they're doing, that could also be a useful use for Go. So that was our 50,000 foot mini deep dive on Go, as well as a bit of a comparison to the UKG Ready site. Any questions on any of that stuff?
I don't have any at the moment, but I'm sure once I collect my thoughts and read some of the notes I've taken down, I may have a few.
Okay, excellent. And anyone else?
Do you guys have any ideas or clients where this may be useful, or is there something in there that you could see like, oh, if it did this, if it did that, anything like that?
Well, I mean, not off the top of my head. I mean, as we've discussed before, we do a lot of medical field, nursing homes, assisted living homes, people that have house appointments, some of them see 2 or 3, clients in a day. Some of them stay 4 nights in a row at a client. So I'm trying to, wrap my head around how could we initiate this for that type of client.
Yeah.
So yeah, my wheels are turning on it.
I will tell you one use case which may trigger a thought. Motel or a hotel staff, right? Quite a big property. Mm-hmm. And the use case is that the member of the team arrives in the morning. They go into the break room and they clock in using the iPad, and then they go about performing their duties for the day. And the duties start by going and doing room cleaning across the site, which, as I mentioned, is quite large. What they do, obviously, they have the ability to take breaks and take lunch using their mobile device, as opposed to having to come back necessarily to the break room, although probably they would go to the break room for lunch. Okay, fine. Then later in the day, they're going to change tasks and they're going to go and do laundry work, for instance, right? And the laundry is not located next to the break room. So the ability to change tasks while they're out roving around the property makes a lot of sense for that client. And then when they come back and shift tasks again to general duties or, whatever, cleaning or whatever it may be, they can do that. So that's a case where we've seen the interoperability between a centrally located iPad and a mobile device working really well together for somebody to just work on site. Right. So hopefully that's helpful, and just give you one example of the use case. Without further ado, if there's no more questions or comments, we appreciate anything else from anyone. Looks like no. We appreciate your business. We appreciate your partnership. And we would love to help you in any way. And if there's anything that you need to go over in more detail to do with the topic we talked about today or anything else, we're always here to help. And thanks so much for your time.